Summer is upon us with all the heat and humidity that implies. But to me, it also implies a whimsical time of reading classics. Now, whimsy and classics likely don't go together in your mind, which is the main assumption I want to challenge today. Not only for classical literature, but also black and white movies, classical music, really pick and choose your art. See, Columbia graduate and author Lisa Libes said that, quote, "The greatest trick English departments ever pulled was convincing students that analyzing a novel is more important than loving one," end quote. People have been trained to think that the classics are something that can only be viewed through a strictly academic lens, which is very often a boring one. But the classics aren't textbooks. They're stories meant to be enjoyed as such. For instance, Shakespeare, in his time, had to appeal both to the highbrow aristocracy and the average peasant who would throw rotten fruit at the actors if they didn't like the show. So while yes, Shakespeare does drum some of the deepest wells of thought and philosophy in his plays, he's also just really funny, a trait you likely never noticed if you've only ever read his plays, specifically in a dull, academic way. If you sit down to read any classic, not as a stuffy old philosophy text, but as a book, I think you'll find that it is just as capable of connecting us to the characters, the plot, the epic highs and lows of the emotional spectrum as any other story. The main difference then between classics and contemporary literature is not that one is incapable of being entertaining, but that one leaves you with more than just entertainment. What makes a classic is the staying power it holds, the ability to explore the universal truths of the human condition, society, or relationships, to nurture our soul not instead of writing an enjoyable story, but through the story. Thus, reading classics not only expands the horizons of your life, but also of other literature. Once you see what a master can do with the English language, you can more clearly see what an average writer is trying to convey or achieve with their story. I do want to clarify that not all classics are secretly high-octane action thrillers on the inside. Many of them are slowly paced, highly philosophical, have a cultural or language barrier, or just plain dense. Some classics are hard to read, but it is through challenging ourselves that we grow. So what's the alternative? Sitting in your cozy bubble as your world slowly shrinks around you? Classics are not devoid of the potential for drudgery or difficulty, but are ultimately a joyful challenge which expands our personal and literary worlds. Thank you for watching. I'm Daphne Pulsone, and this has been the Writing Referendum. Tune in next time for a discussion of contemporary literature. I'll see you then.